Morning. Got a cup of coffee today, although the sun is shining quite a lot today, which is nice. But this week I'm going to be talking about something probably quite serious, and that's fraud. Let's go to the intro. Okay, and welcome back to my little vlog this week. As I said, this week I'm going to be talking about fraud a little bit, and how to maybe go about choosing your wedding photographer. It was after I read, I'm looking at my screen here, it was in the Mail. I'll put a link to this article below. Fraud squad investigators at wedding photography firm after 200 couples complained the husband and wife bosses were late, the pictures were blurry, and they were forced to rely on guests' selfies for memories of their big day. You can read the whole thing. There's obviously upset couples that have paid these people lots of money. They apparently have pocketed up to £100,000 from their wedding photography scam, and yeah, you can read about that. As I said, the link will be down below. So I thought I'd make my little list of things to look out for, maybe questions to ask a potential wedding photographer person that you might be emailing right now, or you might be considering meeting up with. There's a couple of things that sort of go around on forums a little bit that make no sense at all, and they're pretty silly. And you'll see this on a couple of different wedding forums, maybe chat groups. Make sure they are a registered business. If you're in the UK, there's kind of no such thing as a registered business. As such, obviously you can just trade as a sole trader. All you have to do is pay tax. That's it. There is no, make sure your wedding photographer is a registered business. Unless they're a limited company or a PLC or something like that. Nonsense. Another one is make sure they are HMRC registered. The tax office don't give you a certificate or any proof that you're HMRC registered and that you're paying tax. And obviously we're not about to go and print off our tax returns and give it to brides and grooms. That doesn't really make any sense and doesn't really prove anything. So if you see them two on a forum somewhere telling you to check your wedding photographer is a registered business, or they are registered to pay tax, doesn't really mean anything. And there's another one that gets bandied around a little bit, and that's make sure they are DBS checked. I'm not going to make a fool of myself by suggesting I know about the DBS laws and checking and security and everything, but you don't need to be DBS checked to be a photographer. We're not working with children or vulnerable people as such. Again, some people do ban that around as I'm DBS checked. Obviously, you have to ask them who checked them and why. Was it their employer that did it? Doesn't necessarily cover your wedding day, and especially if it was done 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago or 2 years ago, doesn't really mean anything. So, worth to be aware of. Okay, things to look out for and maybe ask. I've been online and had a little look at some guides that suggest some of these, and some of them are quite good. One big one: insurance. If you're getting a photographer to come along for the day, loads of gear, people, drinks, havoc, chaos, obviously ask if they're insured. They will have a certificate of insurance, maybe digitally. Ask to see that. Make sure they're insured, make sure their insurance is up to date, and they have public liability insurance just in case somebody gets hurt or whatever. Always worth asking. And always ask about what backup gear they have. Do they have spare cameras? Do they have spare flashes? Do they carry spare batteries and, spare stuff? Most photographers that do weddings will have a second or maybe even a third camera. So if you drop your camera or for some reason it just stops functioning, you pick up another one. And, if that stops working, then you might pick up another one. So ask about backup gear. That's always fairly important. And maybe the insurance on that as well. So you can get data insurance. So if that photographer loses or corrupts their memory cards and all your wedding photography is on there, what about that? Worth asking. This is one I saw online. I'll leave the link to this as well because it seemed like quite a good guide. It wasn't full of crazy stuff. And that's to ask, how many weddings a year do you shoot? It's a good question. If someone's shooting 20, 30, 40 weddings a year, brilliant. If someone says I'm shooting 70 weddings a year, that's a lot of work. You know, you've got to. So it's a good question to ask how many weddings a year they're shooting. Otherwise, they could be very tired. You could be waiting a long time for your pictures because it's taken them so long to edit them, to work through these 70 or 100 weddings a year. So it's probably a good question. Another one. Ask to see a full gallery. Have you got a full wedding day gallery that I can check out? I do. Most photographers do. It might not be made public. You might have to email them. But, you know, can I see a full gallery of a wedding that you've done? It's probably quite a good one. Another important one, a contract. Now, I know that there is a lot of well-seasoned professional wedding photographers that don't go anywhere near contracts, that don't have contracts, but most do. So yeah, make sure that you have a contract to protect you, to protect the photographer, just in case anything happens, and it protects everybody. So make sure you have a contract. And this is another one that I've seen recently in a photographer group, actually, and that's payments. There's always lots of talk about payments. Now, obviously, sometimes you are paying someone quite a lot of money to do this service for you. And there was a discussion. Excuse me, good burp. There was a discussion on a recent wedding photographers forum that I was looking at, and the photographer was very, very reluctant to offer their client any other payment terms other than a bank transfer. And I suggested, well, we're told in the UK and probably elsewhere as well that the last way that you should be paying for a service is by bank transfer, just because it offers absolutely no security at all on your payment. It's fine if somebody wants to pay you that and they're happy with that, but if they want to pay you services and goods on PayPal, or if they want to pay a credit card, then maybe you should look at that. I think a lot of photographers do offer multiple choices of where to pay. So that's another, probably a good question. Is my investment safe with you if something happens? If you just don't show up, what comeback do I have on my payment? Again, ties in with your contract, obviously, about terms and conditions, and if you aren't happy with the service that you've got. So payments is a good one. Contracts, make sure you've got a contract. And another one, so many things. This is all the things that, I suppose, as wedding photographers, that we continually think about and work on. It's all of these little elements. And the one is drones. Obviously, drone photography and videography has grown hugely over the last few years. I want a photographer that takes drone shots. Now, drones, you need a license. It's a PFCO license to use commercially. If you don't have a license, you are flying illegally. So make sure, if you've got a drone operator at your wedding, that they've got the license to work commercially. If they don't, then their insurance will be invalid, and if they crash into your wedding car or the bride's face or whatever might happen, absolutely no cover, and they're actually breaking the law. So if you're going to hire a drone operator or a photographer that's going to come along to your day and shoot drone footage, make sure they've got a license for it. So that was my little guide of maybe how to avoid becoming a victim of photography fraud on your wedding day. Again, go down below. I'll link to this Mail Online, even though I don't really want to link anything to the Daily Mail, but I'll link to this this piece on this people that were defrauding people. I'll also put in that link I've got, which is Bridebook, actually. If you don't use Bridebook, go and have a look at it. If you're planning a wedding, or if you're thinking about planning your wedding, check out Bridebook. It's pretty cool. Quite a lot of good advice on there. Again, I'll put that link below so you can check out the things to ask your photographer. Now, hopefully, that will keep you safe. I'll let you get about your day. And next week, I'm going to talk about my top 5 pictures that I've taken that I like and the story behind them. I thought that might be quite cool. I'll see you then.